What is up, guys? It's the Sound Alchemist. Y aquí estoy con...
Guardsman.
And we're back to answer another Q&A video entitled For the Greater...
WAAAGH.
This is a video series where we answer the questions left by you, the viewer. If you have a question for us, comment down below. What question in front of your question, because we get to those questions first. That is what Digital Sigma did. Digital Sigma asks, when the flagship of Battlefleet Tempestus overloaded its warp engine and sucked High Fleet Behemoth into the warp, do you think some of the Tyranids survived and are now battling the chaos somewhere in the warp? Yes. The Tyranids have this cool thing called Shadow in the Warp, and I think that kind of works as a Geller field in the warp. Whereas, like, when an orc goes into the warp, he's just battling demons. But I think the Tyranids can still maintain a core of, like, protection, kind of like insulation from all of the chaos. Or, well, I wouldn't say all of the chaos, but, like, most of the chaos. Yeah. And yes, there is actually a specific Hive Fleet that specializes in fighting chaos. That is Hive Fleet Cronus. Check out our 40 facts on Hive Fleet Cronus. So, yeah.
It's really interesting as to why Tyranids would even fight chaos to begin with. Because Tyranids are all about that mass. Yeah. No treble. So it's like the more mass you have, obviously the Tyranids are going to go and consume it, degrade it, learn from it, and adapt to it. But when you kill chaos demons, they just go back into the warp. So exactly why are they doing this? Why is there a specific fleet or tendril of Tyranids to combat that?
Right. It might be because they just see them as a threat. Like most wild animals will attack other animals, not so much because they're trying to eat them, perhaps, especially if they're not carnivores, but they're attacking the other animal because they're competition. Right. And the Tyranids probably see chaos as competition, and saying like, "Hey, you're sucking these planets into the warp. We don't want that to happen. We want to consume these planets, so we're gonna attack you now. So square up."
Let me put my J's on.
Next question.
This one's by San Orange. Why is the Emperor always depicted as a half-dead wreck? Isn't he supposed to be immortal and doesn't age? Plus, the throne itself should serve as a life support system. So shouldn't he be as good as new? No. Unfortunately not.
The life support system doesn't mean that it's regenerating you. It just means it's keeping you alive.
Right. And you got to think, he's not just sitting there trying to, like, get back up. He's powering the Astronomicon, and he's, like, still guiding his Marines, the Custodes, the Sisters of Silence, Sisters of Battle. He's doing a lot on that chair.
Yeah, and he's tired. It's tough for an emperor.
It's hard out here. Full pimp.
Next question. This one comes from Connor Sigler. What would happen if or when Lehman Rus returns? If Lehman Rus becomes, or if Lehman Rus became an emperor? What would happen if Lehman Rus returned? Well, Space Wolves would be happy because they don't have to go on no hunts no more. And obviously, he would come back with a bunch of Dark Eldar heads. Because didn't Lehman Rus go towards the warp?
Yeah, he went into the warp for the Great Hunt. That's it.
I don't think he would ever be to the same level as Guilliman, though, in terms of charge of the Imperium. He was always very, like, I'm going to stay with my boys, my Space Wolves, and forget the humans. Let them do their thing. And then once he finds out that the Inquisition actually invaded Fenris, his homeworld, he's going to be pissed.
I mean, if anything, that would have been the time for him to come back.
Yep. And he didn't. So there must be some really pressing matters inside of the warp.
Like Bridget B's probably in there.
Heck yeah. That's probably why all the Primarchs are in the warp.
In the warp. Like, oh, I gotta go to do the Great Hunt.
Yeah. Wink wink.
This one's by Virile Sheets. Have you guys read something in a book and wished it was on tabletop? I read that Bridget B and it was in a book.
And I wish it was on my tabletop. Boom, boom, boom. No, I go. Bah, 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 bah. No, but Yeah, the Unification War.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Unification War is one of the most exciting eras in in that galaxy.
Warhammer lore.
Yeah. And I wish that they would do something for the tabletop. Rack goals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For me, easily, it's all the different xenospecies. Like, just to have armies of, like, these incredible, like, fantastic creatures that can do things that are, like, so out of the ordinary, would be really interesting to see how to actually, those abilities would play out in the tabletop.
Yeah.
Tal vez.
Tal vez. Un día. Next question comes from Damian Henderson. When a normal space marine dies and his gene seed is harvested, what happens to it? Does it get thrown away or somehow converted to Primaris gene seed? Oh, I get what you're saying. So the gene seed carries the DNA of what is it called?
Deoxyribonucleic acid?
Is that what it's called? They kind of think of it as like a stem cell, where the gene seed helps promote growth, but it's not necessarily, or it promotes growth within the gene seed organs.
Essentially, it's the way to keep the chapter, legion, whatever, continuing. You destroy the gene seed, you essentially destroy future space marines from becoming.
Yeah. And Primaris still have that gene seed. They have more gene seed organs, but that gene seed helps even those Primaris gene seed organs. So you have to think about it in the way that it's written in the books. It's like multiple different organs. One of them is the gene seed organ that you can think of as stem cells. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. It makes sense in my head. But then again, I don't know what's going on in my head.
In my head, I see you all over me.
Whoa! Next question.
Michael Hornell, like Dr. Hornell, what is a secret about the Warhammer 40k lore that you want answered? And what's a secret that you'd prefer to remain a mystery? So the one that I really want to remain a mystery is the Lost Primarchs, the 2nd and the 11th. Because I feel it's cooler to see all this like fan lore instead of just saying, oh, this is what they were. All this fan lore is rubbish now.
Rubbish.
And the one that I really want answered is, what exactly is Farsight's Dawnblade? Because there's rumors of it being a chaos weapon, rumors of it being Necron technology-infused weapon, or maybe it's one of the crone swords for the Eldar. So just to have that little piece of lore filled out would tie in the Tau to one of these other races, which would be pretty cool.
Yeah. I would want like a piece of lore that I want them not to touch is the Emperor's origin. Like, we understand it. Like, it was 100 shaman sacrificed themselves, yada yada. Don't add any more detail to it. Let it be a mystery. The lore piece that I wish we would get more information on is the whereabouts of Bridget B in the Warhammer 40k world, just because I want to see what's going on. Yeah.
What about you guys? That's a pretty interesting question.
Do you guys know where she is? Next question comes from Michael. Oh, we just said that, right?
I believe so. Hornell?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next question then. No, that's not it. Joshi Brigham. Could the Emperor microwave a burrito so hot that he himself could not eat it? Think about it. Well, the Emperor is not a god. He's just a guy on a throne. So yes, he can definitely microwave a burrito that's so hot he couldn't eat it. You're thinking of it in a god perspective of like, could God create an immovable object? Yeah. But that's not the Emperor.
Right.
Our boy is just on a throne, decaying. He might become a warp god, but then you could just think about it with like an actual god. So like Korn. Could Korn microwave a burrito so hot he couldn't eat it? Yeah. I mean, nobody says that the chaos gods are omnipotent. Is that the right word?
Omnipotent.
Omnipotent.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's a fun word to say. This one, this one's by Stu for 2002. Does Nurgle love poo? And is there any models and paint schemes that represent this, like piss-stained traitor guardsman? I'm pretty sure you could make the right color scheme, color palette work for this.
Mm-hmm.
Like have like a guardsman with like corn on his shoe. Like maybe he didn't quite digest it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he does.
Mm-hmm. Some swamp green.
Swamp. Next question comes from Pineapple. How does runic armor work for the SWs?
Space wolves.
Oh, how does runic armor work for the Space Wolves side? It's Psyker only. Maybe it's Force armor. I'll keep trying to get in a video. So how does runic armor work? It's runic armor. You did the armor for those guys, didn't you?
Yeah, essentially I feel like it's just what do you call it? Technology, like the machine spirit or whatever. But they believe it to be like the ancestors and like the spirits protecting them. But that's just a whole bunch of like malarkey, hubbub, baloney.
And just like a little bit about, because I don't know if there's been a question about the machine spirit yet, but I wanted to talk about the machine spirit for a little bit, just because this happened to me today as I was driving. Well, not today. So this week as I was driving. So my car was not working. It had a no crank, no start. So it was not the battery. It turned out to be the starter. So what was crazy is that like I kept trying it, it wouldn't start. And then my dad came over to take a look, and he didn't touch anything, and the car started. And like right away, it was just one of those moments of like, it's almost as if the car has a mind of its own. In reality, it was the starter, and it somehow probably like when I opened or slammed the door, like it tapped it or something. But then it adds to that like mythology of like, oh, maybe there is a soul within the car, and it's acting or it's activating because my dad stepped in. So now when somebody else sees it, it's like, oh, it doesn't work. I was just thinking about that the other day. I wanted to bring that up.
Machine spirit doesn't like you very much.
Exactly, like that.
You need to pray and sacrifice your toaster to it.
Yep. Or like when you take your car to the mechanic and it doesn't make the same noise. You're like, why are you doing that to me? And you're speaking to it as if it's an actual person. Mm-hmm. So the belief in the Imperium is that taken to an extreme.
Yeah. It's like you desecrated the back seat. I will never make that noise for you again.
Yeah. Last question.
This one is by Ty Shingleton. What would the Imperium look like if another Primarch returned other than Guilliman? Could you give an example of each Primarch? I don't think it'd be much of a change depending on which Primarch and what happened, because first and foremost, like their main threat does seem to be chaos. So whether like Lehman Rus came back, Sanguinius came back, Rogel Dorn, like I still feel like their main objective would be to attack chaos.
Yeah, I agree. And the galaxy is so big that like if Lehman Rus came back, he would take care of his sector. Mm-hmm. If the Lion came back, he would take care of his stuff with the Fallen.
Right, Luther and all that. Cypher.
Yeah. So they all have agendas, and I don't think they would...
They're not going to be drastically different than what Guilliman has in mind.
Yeah, you just have to look at the Demon Primarchs, because we have a couple of them. And as you can see, like they interact like maybe once or twice, but that's about it. And then they just go back to doing their own thing, mm-hmm. Which is sucking for more Tarion. But yeah. Those were the questions for today. If you guys have more questions for us, comment down below. We do this 3 times a week now. So if we didn't get to your question, ask again.
Mm-hmm. This has been The Sound Alchemist.
Gershwan.
And we are out of here.